recorded drop, you can't ignore it.
Hello, everyone. We're going to try a different format this week and see how it goes. We have scheduling. I'm trying to get a few things ahead. And not just trying to get things ahead. We're trying a different way. There'll be no video feed, so to speak. No live cam, as it were. But we'll see how it goes. Did this last semester, so it's much more of an audio format. But let's see how it goes for us this week. This past week, week 4, we discussed knowing your audience and the importance of knowing who your audience is so you can better adapt and adjust and prepare for your presentation, for your lesson, for your speech. And it is quite important to do so. In the supplementary video, I attached a short clip from the movie, the film, The Blues Brothers, and that is a very clear-cut case of the band not knowing or caring who their audience was and playing the wrong kind of music. But that's a comedy movie, so obviously. But even then, there are real-life examples of often people who aren't from an area saying the wrong thing. One example is back from 2008. So quite a long time ago, 12 years ago now, my goodness. During the presidential election in the United States, the vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin was giving a speech in Pennsylvania, in western Pennsylvania, nearby Pittsburgh. And she made a note at the start of her speech about congratulating the Philadelphia Phillies for winning the Major League Baseball title, for winning the World Series. And the reaction by the crowd, by the audience, was negative. They booed her because she said, "Hey, and congratulations for the Philadelphia Phillies that winning the World Series. Good for them." And everyone was like, "Boo!" Because that audience in western Pennsylvania, there's one thing they hate that they all agree on hating. Number one hatred is Philadelphia. They hate eastern Pennsylvania. That's quite normal, and quite understandable, I think, as well. If you go to Busan and ask them, and start saying how great, well, let's say, for example, how great the Kia Tigers are, well, you're going to have a much stronger negative reaction. And if you go to Gwangju and start talking about how great Lotte is, you'll have a stronger negative reaction. Those regions generally don't like each other for lots of reasons. Not on an individual basis, of course, but, generally speaking. So we're getting back into the nitty-gritty, so to speak, talking about conceding and refuting points. Saying when the other side is correct about something, or when you're disagreeing and trying to explain why they're wrong, why what they're arguing for is incorrect. And so in polite conversation, how it should be, we don't just yell at people. We shouldn't do that. So we need to be polite. We want to keep things civil, and especially depending on who we're talking to, about why what they want is a bad idea or an impossible idea, things like that. So when we start conceding, refuting points of speech are important functions in English. So here are a few definitions to help us move along. Concede. It is admitting that another person is right about something. It's not saying you agree or you like the idea. It's that the other person is correct. You don't have to like it, but you're acknowledging the correctness of their statement. So it is being polite. And refuting is to prove that someone else is wrong about something. So often in English, speakers will concede a point only to refute a larger, more important issue. They'll concede something and then pound back with a refutation. That is quite common in speech, conversation, debate, is how it's supposed to be, and in writing as well. Here are some examples. It's true that working can be tedious. That's the concession. Conceding working is boring. It's tedious. However, without a job, you won't be able to pay the bills. You have to have a job to live, so you have to work. That's how it. You don't have to like it. It's just how it is. So we have the concession, refutation. Next on example 2, while you might say that the weather has been really bad this winter, it's important to remember that we needed lots of snow in the mountains. This is if we get a heavy snow, that snow is needed later on for our water. This was especially true where I used to live in the Seattle area in America. Seattle's famous for its rain, but most of our water came from the winter snows from the mountains, so we needed the snow. So we're here. We have the concession. While you might say that the weather has been really bad this winter, then refutation, it's important to remember that we need lots of snow on the mountains. And example 3, I agree with you that we need to improve our sales figures. On the other hand, I don't feel we should change our overall strategy at this time. Concession, I agree with you that we need to do this. On the other hand, we don't need to change everything. So these are nice short examples of concession, refutation. Concession, refutation. This is especially important when you're discussing with peers, when you're brainstorming in a group of equals, trying to make sure everyone's happy. Because if you just dominate and steamroll over the other people, well, that's not polite, and that doesn't help the other members contribute, as in they're not going to want to contribute if their ideas are continually rejected. They're just not going to keep giving ideas. So in this week's supplementary material, I'm going to show you 2 videos. One is from the very first televised presidential debate from 1960 between President Kennedy, which we met before, and then Vice President Richard Nixon, who later became president. And you can see how they talk to each other, and how rather they talked about each other, but they don't talk directly to each other because that's part of the rules. Because if you're directly talking to someone, the more likelihood you'll get into a direct argument, which in the debate, that's not what they wanted. The debate was there to discuss the issues, the policies, the ideas, but not not the people, not the individual men. So there's a lot of very good examples of concession and refutation in that, and so quite happy with that. So back at it, when we're trying to make a point, it's a good idea to first frame the argument, then concede a point if you need to, and then thirdly, refute the larger issue. Let's take a look. So framing the issue, we need to provide some background information, introducing something that you want to refute, something that you want to make a point against. So begin by introducing a general belief that you would like to refute. You can use general statements or speak about specific people that you would like to refute. So you want to think it in terms of a formula. Here's it is. Person or institution to be refuted. So feel / think, believe, insist that, opinion. So you'll see this in Kennedy's speech from 2 weeks ago when he talks about some people ask, some may ask, why the moon? Why should we go to the moon? He's refuting that. He does a lot of this. He might concede. He concedes that it is hard, it's going to be expensive, and it's dangerous. People will die, but we have to be brave and bear the cost in order to get the benefit. So who is the problem? Think, feel, believe, insist that. You'll notice these are all opinion-based words. They feel that, they think that, they believe that, they insist that. Then an opinion. These are not facts. Fact-based, objective words. Here are some examples. Some people feel that there is not enough charity in the world. Example 2. Peter insists that we haven't invested enough in research and development. So here we have the indefinite some people. Some people say this. Some people feel that. Here we have the definite. Peter insists. And so you'll see this a lot if you have to watch the news coming out of America about the presidential election this year. They're talking about President Trump or Vice President Biden. They're insists, says, believes. They say things. And the third example, the board of directors believes that students should take more standardized tests. So we have the board of directors believes, and then here's the opinion of what they believe. So when it's time to make the concession, making the concession is an excellent way to show that you understand what the other person is saying. Because if you refute their argument without understanding it, that is both insulting to them, to the other side, and it's insulting to yourself, of course, as well, insulting to the audience, and it can be quite dangerous if you're basing your arguments on false premises. This has been used in the past with dangerous results. So using this form, we can show that while one specific part of what the other side is saying is true, the overall bigger problem is incorrect. So we can begin with the independent clause and using subordinators to show opposition. Here's some examples. While it's true, while it's sensible, while it's evident, while it's likely that, and then we have that. So while it's evident that our competition has outspent us on, while it's sensible to measure students' aptitudes, although, even though it's true that. So although it's true that our strategy hasn't worked to date, even though it's true that the country is currently struggling economically. So we're seeing certain language, certain word choices that we can use to help frame the issue and concede a point, concede something that's being said. Another way of making a concession is stating that you agree or concede the advantage of something in a single sentence, using such verbs as, I concede that, I agree that, I admit that. One example in that would be healthcare in the United States is rather unique. I don't know if you've heard about it or not, but the United States, for much of its history, has had no public healthcare. Everything was private through individual companies. So there was no Gukman Gongang Boham. There was just, you have to go through, for example, Samsung or whoever else company. I know I have my insurance through Samsung. That's all I can think of right now. And so it's very expensive. There's no base level of coverage. And it's even more dangerous when you do go to different states and travel. So healthcare is very expensive in America, much more expensive than in Korea for the individual. And so some people want to bring around a national healthcare plan for Americans. And a lot of people say, in opposition to it, they might say, I concede that national healthcare is an important issue, but It usually they say it's too expensive. That's the usual counter-argument. So here, to refuting the point. So now you need to punch back. If you use the subordinator, using the words such as while, although, use your best argument to finish that sentence. And here are some examples. So it's also true. It's also sensible. It's also evident that refutation. Or we can say, it's more important. It's more essential. It's vital that. Bam. The bigger issue. The point is that. Bam. So we must remember, we must take into consideration, we must conclude that, bam. So here are some example sentences in that. It's also evident that financial resources will always be limited. We don't have infinity money. We don't have that money cheat. The second example, the bigger point is that we do not have the resources to spend. And the third example, we must remember that standardized testing such as the TOEFL leads to rote learning. So these are examples of the refutation. I wonder, can you hear that car? It's loud. So if you've made your concession in a single sentence instead of a partial sentence, use a linking word or phrase such as however, nevertheless, on the contrary, to state your refutation. And so the examples we see is, however, we currently do not have that capability. Nevertheless, we've succeeded in attracting more customers to our stores. Above all, the people's will needs to be respected. So we see how these can go together. How this is quite literally, this is grammar to give more flavor to our words, to our communication. And finally, we need to make our points. Once we refuted a point, we need to provide evidence to back up your point of view. So how can we set that up? We got here. It is clear. It is essential. It is of the utmost importance that. These are very strong words here. Very strong word choice. I feel. I believe. I think that. These are much more personal, not as strong. These are just what you individually believe. I keep hitting the microphone. I'm sorry for that. So, depending on the situation, on what the context of your refutation is, on what you're talking about, you might need to use some different words. So, let's look at some more complete examples of making our points. I believe that charity can lead to dependence. Some people believe that. I think we need to focus more on our successful products rather than develop new, untested merchandise. There we go. And the third example, it is clear that students are not expanding their minds through rote learning for tests. Those are three. So I believe that. I think that. It is clear that. And then we have the actual statement. We have the functional language, which we have functional language followed up by the content language. All right. So let's take a look at some complete refutations. Excuse me. Students feel that homework is an unnecessary strain on their limited time. This is, we see here, me framing. What are we talking about? Students feel. They don't know. They feel. They're emotional about it. This is a very this is a very good way of weakening the other side's arguments. This is not an intellectual, factual statement. It's an emotional one. And that makes their argument less persuasive, less based on reality. It's just how they feel. So, next concession. While it's true that some teachers assign too much homework, we must remember the wisdom in the saying, practice makes perfect. It is essential that information we learn is repeated to fully become useful knowledge. So this is a complete refutation. We frame the argument. Students are complaining about homework or too much homework. This is a common complaint, well, on every level actually, about elementary school, middle school. Most every single group of students I've ever taught have complained about how much homework there was. It didn't matter how much homework there actually was, they still complained. Oh, some of you might feel there's too much homework. And I would disagree entirely. I would say there's not enough, but I am trying to limit it to its extreme minimal essentials. But we see here the framing of the argument. Students feel homework is unnecessary strain, unnecessary stress. Then we see the concession. While it's true that some teachers assign too much homework, notice we have the qualifier. Some teachers, not all, but some, assign too much homework. Then we have the next point. We must remember the wisdom in the same practice makes perfect. And then the final statement of opinion. It is essential that information we learn is repeated to fully become useful knowledge. So we see all the parts of the refutation here in this 1, 2, in 3 sentences. So it's a nice short little paragraph. Here's another example right here. Some people insist that profit is the only viable motivation for a corporation. I concede that a company must profit to stay in business. However, the larger issue is that the employee satisfaction leads to improved interactions with clients. It is clear that employees who feel they are compensated fairly will consistently give their best. So they're talking about the salaries to pay workers. So some people insist that profit is the only viable motivation for a company, for a corporation. I concede that a company must profit to stay in business. So framing the argument, conceding one point, a specific point. However, the larger issue is that employee satisfaction leads to da-da-da. It is clear that employees who feel they are compensated fairly will work best. All right, that's the old joke. If a company pays minimal wage, they're paying for minimal effort. The amount of effort you give in for a job is directly tied into how much you get paid. Here's an example. What's a minimum wage job? Oh, if you get a part-time job working at a GS25, for example, are you going to work really hard? No, probably not. How much is minimum wage now in Korea? 8,000, 9,000 won? It's not very much. So you're not going to try very hard for something that you're not going to make any more money for it. That's a lesson I had to learn in Korea as well, that me working hard didn't make me any more money. It just got me more stress. So that is a lesson we all have to learn sometime. Working harder for someone else, rather. If you want to work hard for yourself, by all means, do it. But working yourself to death for a company or a school that really doesn't care about you, man, somebody has to care about you, and that has to be you. So these are all examples of conceding a point, conceding part of an argument, but more importantly, refuting it in a polite way. Refuting it. This is just a nice, interesting piece. I want us to bear in mind that we still have the Selling Something project coming up. Don't forget that, the Selling Something project. Then also we have more lectures coming up, and there will be a quiz in the near future. Nothing too soon. It'll be short. It's just a review. It will just be a review based on different lectures that we've had, and all the questions will be based on information that is easily had by you, and from the book as well. So don't worry too much. I am happy so far with our student participation. Don't forget that participation is a very important part of our grade. In the supplementary material this week, there'll be at least 2 videos. One is the presidential debate. It will be in black and white. So it's old. It's from 1960. Something just to bear in mind is that John F. Kennedy was a much younger man, and he was much more he understood television much faster than Richard Nixon. Now, Richard Nixon knew about TV, obviously. He knew about it. But Kennedy understood how the normal rules of appearance didn't apply for television. And you'll see that immediately when you turn it on. Back then, there wasn't color television. We didn't have color then. It was all black and white. And so Kennedy wore lots of makeup to make sure he didn't sweat. And also he wore a dark blue or black suit so he could show up very, very well on television. Richard Nixon didn't, and he wore a gray suit. And gray suit's fine in most other situations, but not when everything is gray. So he didn't look very distinctive, very strong, very presidential, as it were. And in fairness, Richard Nixon, he had knee surgery, and so you might notice him standing a bit, him moving his leg a little bit because he was in incredible pain while trying to talk. But you also see how they talked and how Kennedy's presence on the camera and talking to the camera versus Nixon's ability to talk to the camera versus talking to people in the audio, in the studio. So it's the beginning of the television age. So, but both of them followed this formula when talking about each other's, not personality, but each other's policy proposals or policy beliefs. They were very careful not to attack each other's personalities because there were plenty of bad things both of them had done already. But they wanted to maintain the veneer, the facade, so to speak, the polite facade that the dignity of the office demanded, so to speak. And you can compare this to the debates that happened earlier this year in the Democratic presidential primary debates. They're yelling and screaming at each other. A lot more nasty things going on. So it's an interesting contrast. And hopefully you'll be able to also find basically Kennedy and Nixon following this exact same formula that we covered here in this lecture. Then also I'll be sure to include a second video from a talk show. It features the talk show host, Dick Cavett, I believe his name is, a white man, and his guest is James Earl Jones, who I don't think you know who he is exactly, but you know of him, and you've heard his voice. Now, he's an actor and a voice actor, most famously with Star Wars Darth Vader. He's the voice of that, and also he's Mufasa, the father in The Lion King, in both the old cartoon and the new cartoon, 3D cartoon. So he plays that. So he's an actor, and he's being asked very pointed questions, and so he has to answer them, but in a very polite way to not upset people. He's just trying to give his answer and make it clear that he's speaking for himself, but also trying to defend other people's choices while not speaking for them. So he was quite skilled in his efforts, I think. And so I think he's a very good example of this polite disagreement and what James Earl Jones had and how he talked and how he had that. All right. That's all we have this week. If I have any more, of course, I'll add it on. I'm recording this far ahead of time, so there might be supplementary material. We'll see. Have an excellent week. Stay safe, and goodbye.